So, are
Oh,
those
honey, look,
angels? Are those angels on
yes,
your shoulder?
I've been wearing these angels since my father went into the hospital. And I said, okay. And now that he's out, praise the Lord, I said, well, let me wear my angels. I'm find some more angels on my shoulder. So I'm thanking God. How about that? What you saying for honey, for every little thing? I thank God for, praise God for whom all the blessings flow. I'm doing
And
all of
Ron,
that.
is Jasmine supposed to be making an announcement tomorrow?
I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow, but I know I think she's running, but I don't know if it's tomorrow or not. Is that
Okay,
what
Well,
you're understanding?
what is
Your
she
sources
that's what
are
running?
I
better than
heard.
mine.
What is she doing?
Daryl, your sources are
Uh,
better than
she's
mine.
looking at. My understanding is that she's looking at the Senate seat down there.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
I think you know
okay,
more than that.
okay.
I know
You,
nothing.
you might you might be in Dallas on Monday.
So, well, if you see the John Lewis bus roll in, you'll know.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, I like that.
Yeah, I think your
Okay,
sorrows get in, Santita.
of course. Come on.
Hmm.
We gotta stand up. We have to do that. So, all right, everybody, we're gonna get going because, in fact, we're up already. Hey, 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 hey. Okay, I'm sending you over. We're gonna come up in 15 seconds, so we can make this nice and clean. Okay, okay, okay. And we're up in three. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. 2026 is already in the mix, but we got to get out of 2025 first. Remember, we've had thousands of races, and Democrats have really performed extremely well. Even if they have not won races, they've come very, very close to winning races in Republican strongholds. What's going on? I don't think this is about parties, everybody. I think this is about direction. It's about the people's direction, where people are pushing parties. Parties are not pushing people anymore. Look at what's happened in New York. The Democrats never really embraced Zoran Mamdani, but the people did. And so the Democrats had to fall in line. They didn't fall in love, but they had to fall in line. Now, what comes next? I don't know. I tell you what, though, if you push and push and push and push, Zoran Mamdani, Brandon Johnson, and other progressives can do the job that you sent them to do, but you've got to make things happen. And so now we're looking at a race in Tennessee where it's a Republican stronghold, everybody. And yet a Democrat is within striking distance of winning. The fact that Afton Bain has gotten this close is noteworthy. In Tennessee, in the heart of a Republican stronghold, what does that say about the electorate? Many people are saying, many polls are saying that Mr. Van Epps might just actually pull this race out. We don't know because if the people turn out the way they turned out in New York, if the people really perform up to, if they begin to approach their potential, she could win, which means they would win, which means you'd have another vote to support affordable housing, which means you would have another vote um, to maybe look at Medicare for all. Maybe that's what we need to do, everybody. Because while we're arguing over the Affordable Care Act, and that certainly did make a good difference in our lives, the fact is we still have a middleman, if you will, a middle entity in between us and our health care. Don't you think it's time that we got rid of that? But you need to have voting members of Congress in both chambers who can help make that happen. So, what's happening in Tennessee? And what does that portend for other races around the country? So, I want to hear from you. Hey, reach out to me, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel on Blue Sky. santitajackson.bsky.social. I'm on X at Santita J, at Santita J. I am on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody like and share. I'm sharing with Reverend Jesse Jackson's page. So please like and share there, everybody. So let's get right to it. I want to hear from, of course, Attorney Darrell Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition. Hope you had a marvelous Thanksgiving weekend, you, Bailey, and all of your magnificent family members, and of course, you and your beautiful family. Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. Well, let's start with Tennessee and then let's pivot to Texas because I think that this is going to be a very exciting season. So, talk to me, Representative Reynolds. I mean, what do you think about what we're hearing about Tennessee?
Well, Santita, it's great to be on with you. I want to say, first of all, those angels have definitely been covering your father. I'm happy to hear about his
Yeah.
release from the hospital. Praise God. I've been so prayerful, as many millions of Americans across the country have as well. I can't tell you how many people since my post have said, hey, I'm praying for Reverend Jackson. So he means so much to so many people. So I had to say that. And it's great to be back on with my frat brother, the illustrious attorney Darrell Jones. Let me tell you, Santita, I'm from Tennessee. I don't know if I ever shared that with you, but I was born in the volunteer state. And this is very, even though the 7th congressional district wasn't where I was from, but anytime there's something impacting Tennessee, especially as it relates to politics, and it gets my attention. So I've been intrigued by this, Santita. And for those who don't know, this is a very Republican stronghold, as you stated. Trump and the previous Republican congressman carried the district by over 20 points. That is huge. That's not a close district. So we should even be having this conversation during normal election cycles where the Republican has such an advantage in terms of a red district. Whether it's a Republican or a Democrat with 20 points, you don't even have those conversations. But the fact that recent polling has showed that this election is polling within 2 points with a margin of error of around 3 to 4 to 5%, that means that we're talking about a statistical dead heat. This is not supposed to be happening in Trump land. This is a election that the Republicans are scrambling to put resources in to push turnout, because even Santita and Darrell, if this election, Democrats aren't expected to compete. They aren't expected to win this seat. So if the Democrat overperforms, and that would only build on the momentum from the last elections a few weeks ago to show the Democrat strength is showing that the Republican brand is hurt because of Trump and the extreme MAGA policies that aren't helping people with their pocketbooks, that are more focused on ICE and anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion, and assault on women's bodily autonomy, and other policies that only favor the billionaire. So this, Santita, is very intriguing. And early voting has already started. Election day is tomorrow. We'll know the outcome of the election. And if it's anywhere within 5, even 10 points, Democrats are going to take that as a victory, not if because they don't necessarily win the seat, but even if statistically they overperform in a ruby red Trump district, that gives more momentum to recruit candidates in other seats where Republicans may have won in past election cycles. But if they're within 10 points, then Democrats see that as a potential flip. I do believe that the Democrats will regain the majority. I do believe that the people are sick and tired of these policies, of people being out of touch with working families and the poor, minorities, women, Asians, immigrants. And so this is definitely not supposed to be happening in the 7th district in Tennessee. And I can tell you finally that this gives a lot of other Democrats hope that if they can win or even come within 5 points, then game on. That's going to give more momentum for donors to donate and recruit candidates and target other seats where Republicans, and again, what this does is that they have to shift precious resources to a district that they shouldn't have to be playing defense on. They should be going and targeting other Democrat, marginal districts and where they can pick up or protect other, what we call frontline Republicans. But this is not supposed to be where they're putting resources. But Trump and the Republican Party, they're having to spend millions of dollars to make sure that they win and defend a seat that should be not even in the conversation. So it's exciting. I'm eagerly anticipating it, but to me, it spells disaster that the Republicans are having to now rally the troops to come out and support a candidate that shouldn't even be nowhere in even a close race.
Well, you know what? Let's go to Attorney Terry O'Neill. You are down in Tennessee, having, being a veteran, of course, of these national, state, local, county races. What are you seeing? And we've got, of course, Dr. Joseph Kiles, who's down there as well. So before we get to you, Attorney Darrell Jones, I've got to go to these Tennesseans and find out what it is that we're looking at, because everybody's talking about it. I think we've been so busy trying to get to 2026, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, that we overlooked these big races in 2025. We've literally got thousands of them. I mean, at every single level. So what are you seeing, Attorney Terry O'Neill?
Well, Santita, I am seeing a lot of interest. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in this election. One of the things that I think is very interesting to me, I've been canvassing on a nonpartisan basis with the Interfaith Coalition that I'm active with. And I spoke to someone who actually lives in Williamson County. It's a suburban county of Tennessee, who has voted a Republican for many, many years. She expressed real concern about the attacks on immigrant communities in the Nashville area. And her concern specifically was that, in Germany, it started with they round up communists because at the time there was a lot of anti-communist fever, going. There was like a moral panic over communists in Germany in the early to mid 1930s, and it was quite a while before they got around to the Jews, but they eventually murdered 12 million people. And this woman in Williamson County says, it's not going to stop with immigrants. They're sweeping up all these immigrants, but at some point they're going to come for me, or they could come for me, or people in my family, or my grandson who is out there, which I wish he wasn't. He's out there protesting against Trump. So what's interesting to me about this is that Republicans are absolutely losing. It was their race to lose, and they are losing it very strongly because of what they're doing in Tennessee. And I would just make one other point. Afton Bain is probably the best candidate in this situation at this moment. Why? Because she is a seasoned, experienced organizer. She's a community organizer. And you have to have community organizing in order to run a campaign, right? That's the ones that win, is the people who can do that. She's extremely good at that. So you have this really, really good organizer. She's a fresh face. She is very wonky, actually. she's not like Zoran Mamdani or AOC, who sort of talk a little bit more at 1,000 feet. She will get right. People ask her a question, ma'am, and she will answer that question right specifically. What are you going to do about X? And her answer is, if I get elected, I'm going to have someone on my staff who's going to be assigned to these specific issues. And if you have a problem with that, you'll be able to call my staffer and get the answer. I mean, she's right there. But she's also just a very, very good organizer. And I think that is what, when you combine that with the extreme unpopularity of the Republican Project 2025 agenda, especially, and let me just, one more thing, the attacks on schools, on public schools, is super unpopular in rural Tennessee. Because the public schools is what you have in rural Tennessee. You have a lot of private schools, and you have this statewide voucher program that is designed to privatize the schools. That's very unpopular in rural Tennessee, and most of this district is rural. It goes and it captures about 117,000 Nashvillians, and other than that, it's rural, except for Clarksville, which is a growing city in the north of the state. But this was designed to be a super red district that basically disenfranchises 117,000 Nashvillians. But a lot of those rural people in those counties do not like the Republican assault on public education. So that's another problem they're facing.
Of course, that is Attorney Terry O'Neill, civil rights lawyer, president emeritus of the National Organization of Women. Their national president got me involved, and I thank you for that. And of course, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds is with us, the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, who has his radio show that you've got to listen to, everybody. 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on WOL out of Washington, D.C., Attorney Darrell Jones. But let me go to you, Dr. Joseph Kyles, KYLES. From down there in Memphis, Rainbow Push down in Memphis, Tennessee. We have quite the relationship with the Kyles, oh goodness, for almost 60 years. But of course, he is a leader in his own right. And thank you for the wonderful words that you wrote and the commercial appeal about Reverend Jackson, your mentor and uncle, sort of. We've been having a good time for a long time since we were kids. Help me to understand, what are we looking at, Dr. Kyles, down in Tennessee? Because everyone is making a lot of this race. Because I think the national pundits are very surprised that Afton Bain is within striking distance. I mean, just the fact that she doesn't have to win. If she just places or shows, that can say something. What is, just from you, just give us some analysis from your perspective of what this race is about.
Absolutely, Santita. Thank you so much for having me on and listening to your guests. They're very knowledgeable, particularly when we talk about vouchers and education. But if we nail it on the head, right now, we've got issues nationally in terms of healthcare. But in Tennessee, the tariffs have done a real disservice to small businesses and some larger business. So we've got issues with farms, we've got issues with small businesses and these tariffs who have had incremental growth probably from over, the last 15 to 20 years. They've seen nice margins and profits, and now the tariffs have placed them in a position where they don't believe they're going to be able to stay in business. And so to have Afton, because she has been engaged and involved, and she really has a mindset of building bridges and creating some diverse but in some comprehensive legislation, I think that she's in the perfect position. She's a great candidate, and she's shown herself to be that. But healthcare has got to be the number one topic from anyone across the nation. And we're seeing it now in Tennessee. While that area of Tennessee has been known to be affluent, there are individuals who are in pain. And so if you can't bring home the bacon, it's time to try a different approach.
What happened? Did she just, where did her candidacy come from, Joseph? Did she?
Well, she has
she run before? What happened? It's almost as if no one saw her coming, at least on the national scene.
Yeah, now I'm told she's had a lot of success with building bridges in terms of the state house and the work there. I think what is really interesting and intriguing to both Democrats and Republicans, they see her as someone that can get a compromise and have some across the aisle legislation passed. And that's what we really want to see. We want to see our 435 members of Congress, our 100 senators work together for the people. And, coming out of this issue for one of the longest periods for the government shutdown, to have issues about SNAP and not having the funding for seniors and others, the food insecurity. These are very serious issues. And as I've heard before, prior to your guest talking about the rural areas, they take these things very serious. And I think that Afton has the ability. She's made inroads to many different communities, and I think she's going to be successful.
Attorney Terry O'Neill, before I go to you, Attorney Jones, is that what you meant about her being an organizer? Because organizers have to build bridges. And I think that's the piece that people miss. I heard someone, Bob Borsage, who we all know, who's been Reverend Jackson and Bob Borsage have worked together. He's brilliant progressive for almost half a century. And he said there's something very, very interesting about Reverend. He has the wonderful ability to turn foes into friends. I mean, and you've seen it, Joseph, down through the years. He has always had the most interesting group of people he could call anybody. He gets along with everybody without compromising his principles. Donald Trump has known where he stood. I mean, Nixon understood him. All these people did. So is that what you're talking about, Terry?
Yes, I think in her experience as an organizer, she's also a member of course, the state legislature. And in her experience as a paid organizer for several years in Tennessee, she is really a good listener. When she talks to people, and this is why I say, a lot of politicians, they listen to your question, and what they're listening for is a key word that they can sort of jump onto that keyword and use it to put out their platform, so that they're really just listening to the person asking the question, so that they can once again state their platform. There's some advantages. I mean, it's not a terrible thing to do, but Afton Bain really does listen to people and answer their questions. I think that's because she has this experience of going door to door, talking to ordinary people in her job as an organizer, but also in Tennessee, certainly in Nashville. There's a whole ecosystem of nonprofit organizations, and they work together, and there are, ways that they can work together. There's a lot of listening that has to go on. Different organizations have their different cultures, right? Sort of organizational cultures and so forth. So yes, she is actually very good at listening and hearing people. And in the legislature, with what it is a super majority of Republicans in the state legislature, and you really can't get anything done unless you can find some Republicans that you can really talk to and work with. And she has worked hard to do that. She, at the same time, is very open and very transparent about the outrageous strategies and tactics used by the Republicans in the House of Representatives here. They turn off the mics of Democratic lawmakers when they don't like what you're saying. They refuse to allow you to. I mean, it's a horrible situation for people who are actually trying to get lawmaking done. And she's been very transparent about that, which is good for her. So yeah, like I said, she's a real breath of fresh air, and I'm excited about the race. I'm really thrilled and amazed that it's gotten this close. I do think if she can come within 10, and there's no guarantee that she can do that, but if she can come within 10, that's frankly, a huge win for her side.
Joseph, as a Tennessean, what say you?
I think what we have to do in that area, in that local area, across the board, voter turnout in D.C. has been dismal. But I think people are excited about this particular race. And I think people are more, Santita, what encourages people, sometimes people vote when they're angry. The voter turnout goes up when someone has something to be angry about. And many people are not only angry, they're disappointed because they thought that they were voting for a particular bottom line. You hear people talk about, well, I'm voting my pocketbook or I'm voting my bank account. Well, that argument has gone through, it's going down and down fast because strong arguments. So Tennessee looking at how turn
Oh, Joseph, we're losing you. We need to get you in a good place.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Now we
right.
got
Is that any better?
that's better.
Okay.
That's it. You
We're on
got
the
it right now.
heels. We're better. Okay.
Yeah.
We're on the heels of this midterm election, and I believe that if we could all support her, East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, and West Tennessee, and give her the necessary resources and help her extend and expand that voter turnout. And I can tell you, in terms of the organization, for several weeks, every day I get a text message from Afton and that campaign about things that they're doing and what they want to do and their goals and their aspirations. And I think that Tennessee needs to really put their shoulder behind the wheel and help her get over the finish line.
Mm. Attorney Darrell Jones, now you and the Transformative Justice Coalition get into good trouble. I mean, and this is really not, I'm not being smug about this, but you've been campaigning all over the country. And so you're seeing something. You've spent a lot of time in New Jersey, for example. I mean, you've seen how, well, you've seen what can happen when Democrats decide to put their money behind a candidate, right, and put their muscle behind a candidate. We also saw what could happen what we saw in New York when we saw what the people can do. I mean, because it was not the Democrats who pushed Zoran Mamdani over the line, or we even put him into contention. It was the people who did that. It was the Democratic Party who stood in the way of Omar Fateh in Minneapolis. I think he could have won had the Democrats supported him, had they not blocked him. So what do you see when you hear about this race, Attorney Darrell Jones?
Well, Santita, thank you again for having me. And it's great listening to all the guests that have spoken. I could not underscore and highlight any more brilliantly than what President O'Neill and Dr. Kiles has been saying. But I will underscore it by saying this. Tennessee, we know, is one of the most gerrymandered states in the country. One of the most gerrymandered states in the country. The seat that we're talking about now in Tennessee, CD7, was set up as safe a Republican seat as you could possibly imagine. Super cushion, not cushion, super cushion, to be certain that that would not be lost. But this is what the reality of what they're facing is. And as they look at it in Tennessee, I hear the argument about, having the voters coming out, that's going to be the big part of it. I believe that's a part of this equation. There's another part of this equation. It's the affordability piece. And I think that's what Dr. Kiles was talking about when he was talking about the assault that's on education, talking about the assault on the tariffs, talking about the assault on the healthcare. These are affordability issues for the folks that are in Tennessee. It becomes a turnout question, not because of saying having all of the Democrats turn out to vote, which they need to do, but it becomes a turnout question because you then have Republicans that are saying, I can't vote for the Democrat, I'm going to sit home. I'm going to sit it out. I won't vote at all rather than voting against somebody that's against my interest, that's with my party. I'll sit it out. I won't vote. And then that's where you have the importance of having that rise of Democratic voters coming out to be certain that, that there can be some type of victory there in CD7. Let me tell you the other part that I found very interesting in this. One of the biggest supporters of Bain that is out there in Tennessee and CD7 are young voters under the age of 40. She has really, locked in the market on them, and they're attached to the message. And again, I certainly yield to Dr. Kiles as well as President O'Neill. But again, it's an affordability question for a generation that is hearing that their ability to buy homes, their ability to do better than their parents is not going to happen. They may not do as good. So it's an affordability question. So they're going to go to the candidate that's offering them hope. And that's what I think is being offered by that Bain campaign. And that's what they're seeing. So it's the combination of the hope message. It's the combination of the negativity message that the Republican Party has been spewing. They're talking about all of the ICE stuff that's out there, talking about all of the kitchen table issues that are there. Will they be able to own a home? Will they be able to find employment? All of it is what's coming together that's going to suppress the Republican voters from wanting to go out and will encourage the Democratic voters to go out. And that's why they're looking at this as a seat that right now is almost too close to call. I agree and don't agree with regards of, if you get close, it's a victory. I think you get a victory, it's a victory. I mean, if you get close, yeah, you've done well, but the story is not going to be for the next month how close you got. You win that seat, and then you dominate the story. The other piece that we've got to be certain we take note of is that, if Afton Bain is successful in this, you can best believe they're going to see an adjustment on the Republican philosophy on what they need to do going forward into next year for the midterm elections. It will also be an indicator, and then I'll stop after this, Santita. It's also an indicator that perhaps redistricting is not the key that they thought that it was to holding on to seats, because this is a seat that is heavily favored for the Republicans. And if Afton Bain is successful, that redistricting stuff, what the stuff that you're selling is so bad that your stacked debt has dealt you bad cards. That's what that means, Santita.
But you know what, Daryl, maybe we need to redefine winning, because we came out of 84 really splitting Mississippi. I mean, I remember when the Secret Service, titled to the back of the bus with the cordless TV, because that was, a big deal, of course, 40 years ago. And they were so shocked. I remember I told you this story. They put the television down in front of us. We were in the back, around the table on the tour bus and on the campaign bus. And he said, Reverend, you need to look at this. My father was like, oh, okay. He said, no, Reverend. Boom, put the TV down. He said, Reverend, you're winning Mississippi. Look at this. Mm-hmm. And he had just won South Carolina. And what Kevin Grave made his soul rest in peace did coming out of South Carolina, he said, okay, now what we're going to do in 4 years, we're going to win. We're going to tear this state up. Mm-hmm. And so he started campaigning the next day. I got to register 25,000 people to vote. I've got to do this. And I think that's where we can look at this, and she might not get the seat this time. She might. But understanding what we saw, we have not had as many voters turn out in New York since 1969. We saw what an excited electorate can do. So even if Zoran Mamdani hadn't won, it was like, wait a minute, if you get one of the things Reverend Jackson showed us is that, number one, we don't need to go inside the party for our voters. We need to excite the electorate. And that's how you can win.
That's it.
Because she's tapping into something, don't you think, Daryl? Because you do this all the time all over the country. You see that there are 90 million Americans did not vote in 2024. 90 million. That's more than who voted for Kamala, more than who voted for the president. The vice president, 77 and 78.5 million votes. But 90 million didn't vote. Can you imagine if just a portion of them had, not even 1% of them could have changed the whole election. But what is resonating with you, Dr. Kiles, Joseph?
100,000. So we had 100,000 and plus just the other day for the Tennessee Vols and the Vandy game. And all the talk was about the Vandy quarterback and how he should win the Heisman. And so, Santita, you and I, and I'm sure everyone else on this panel has grown up with that table conversation about how do we improve the world? What is service like? And so while the national discussion is about Lane Kiffin, who might get $100 million contract for coaching football, but yet people are starving. There are food insecurities. There are healthcare issues. And we know that when you have healthcare issues and you have a serious medical bill, that the first thing that goes is your mortgage. People should not be losing their homes because they can't afford health care. They should not be choosing between medication and sustainable foods. They should have, and as your father, Reverend Jackson, talked about early on in 1984 and 88, he made pollution and clean water and the environment a topic for everyone to see. Here it was, this 6'3" handsome black man going through the Appalachians, going into the mountain country saying, yes, we may not look alike, but I care for you, and we have much more in common. And so that's what's important. I think people are looking for that kind of spirit, that kind of will, that kind of desire to build coalitions, think about the solution. He always came with the solutions, and that's what I think the American public is looking for now.
Well, you know, and I want, of course, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds to give a shout out to Patricia Jones Anderson Jackson. She said, "Good evening, all. I am enjoying the conversation and information. I am from Representative Ron Reynolds' district. You better say hello." Yeah, I'm trying to hello, keep you in the mix.
Patricia, thank you for tuning in. It's always great to have constituents engage, and I couldn't agree with Patricia more that this is great information from people who are on the front line in the volunteer state. So, and it's always great to hear the perspective from Attorney Daryl Jones as well. So, I'm all-star panel for sure.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, because you're in Texas. I mean, and of course, Daryl, you're in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia. Everybody here really is national. Okay, so while of course, Joseph, you live in Tennessee. I've seen you, Reverend. You've been with Reverend everywhere. So Attorney Terry O'Neill, the national president of the National Organization of Women. She has been organizing women who organize everybody else all across the country for decades now. My question for you, Attorney Jones, not Attorney Jones, excuse me, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. How does this impact where you are? Because apparently my soror, Jasmine Crockett, they've tried to gerrymander her out of her seat, but she is continuing to forge ahead. What's going on down there?
Well, I can tell you what it does for Texas. Obviously, I'm from Tennessee, so I hold both Tennessee and Texas near and dear to my heart. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Tennessee. I was born in Jackson, Tennessee, in Jackson General Hospital in Madison County. So,
all right.
Yeah. And I work closely with the Tennessee delegation as a part of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. So I work with President Harold Love and the Vice Chair, Senator Ackberry. And I work very closely with the delegation and of course, the part of the Tennessee 3, the two of the Justins. So I'm very familiar. I keep in touch. So, but to answer your question, it really energizes Texas because Tennessee is a red state. With Tennessee has a supermajority, and it basically energizes Texas to say, you know what, we can gain inspiration from this congressional seat where you had a 20-point Trump and the previous incumbent congressman in a super red district. So if this district can even be in play, then that creates more enthusiasm and confidence in terms of candidates recruiting. Because it's hard to get a quality candidate if they think it's a losing race. Like why am I going to put my credibility on the line to take an L? We don't want to take L's. We don't run to lose. We run to win. And so you get a stronger quality candidate when you know that there is a real chance. And then you get donors who say, you know what? I know what the math said from previous elections, but look what they did in Tennessee. Look what they did in New York. Look what they did in Georgia in those special elections. So what it does is builds momentum. Even though it's another state, you can basically extract data, and then you can use that to say, okay, we can do the same thing in Texas. So I think it gives confidence to people who are looking like Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who has an enormous enthusiasm, a strong base of supporters nationally, and certainly in Texas, that she can say, hey, I know Texas hasn't went blue in a long, long time, but you know what? If there's a ripe opportunity to flip a United States Senate seat, then this is it. Obviously, the Senate hasn't even been discussed much. We've been talking a lot about the House, but the Senate could flip as well, especially with a Congresswoman Crockett potentially running for U.S. Senate in Texas. That's going to bring out those low propensity voters like Mamdani did in New York, like other candidates did across the country. I think Congresswoman Crockett has that unique ability to fire up the base, particularly among African American, Hispanic, and young voters that typically sit out elections, that don't vote in midterm elections. I think she's exactly the kind of candidate that they will stand in line to go vote for. And what does that mean in a state where, you know, we have potentially Ken Paxton, who's very unpopular. Either person is basically aligned with Trump, hook, line, and sinker. And then you have all of these unpopular policies where there are people similar to what you were talking about, Dr. Cowles and Terry, about vouchers that are hurting rural areas. There's no private school that they're going to benefit from. The public school is the biggest employer in those rural areas. Those rural, one of the last Republicans that voted against the vouchers from a rural area, he announced today he's not running for re-election because that the far right has went after them. But guess what? Those voters are not happy with the vouchers, right? And so I see it, Santita, as building momentum and really a catalyst for what could be a blue wave in the midterm elections come 2026. And I think that Texas is in play. Other red states that have traditionally been not really a factor, I think that they're going to be a factor because Texas really is a purple state that has been underperforming from a lot of non-voters. I think this is the climate where you see many unpopular policies that have only benefited the billionaires. Other, you know, Republicans and moderates and independents have to say, wait a minute, am I going to continue to vote against my own interests when it comes to vouchers, when it comes to education and healthcare? Texas leads the nation with the highest number of uninsured because we don't have Medicaid expansion. I'm seeing rising price of goods, services, and groceries. I'm seeing everything go up. We haven't raised the minimum wage. While billionaires are getting richer, the middle class is shrinking. Housing is unaffordable. Insurance is untenable. And so I think that many of the promises that were made to these, you know, these people from Republicans, from Trump and Abbott, they're seeing that they're not materializing. No common sense gun reform legislation, that's very popular. So many of the policies that are popular, Republicans have only focused on red meat for their far right base. They don't care. They're not like, oh, give me more anti-DEI, give me more ICE raids. They're saying, give me more relief in my pocketbook. Help me with affordability from rising costs of tuition for my kids. So, Santita, I do think Texas will learn a lot from what happens tomorrow in Tennessee's 7th congressional district. And if it's, as Terry said, within 10 points, then it's game on. I think that's going to give more enthusiasm as we go into the midterms.
But, you know, having said that, what are the big issues that you think are really going to drive the 900,000 Black and brown people in Texas who are not registered to vote? I mean, we've got, as Reverend used to say, rocks just
laying around. Just
They're
laying around.
they're on the ground. They're just laying there, right there. And because I think Mamdani was exciting, but it's not him. I mean, certainly he's charismatic, and I think he really does love people and he connects. There's no question about that. But what was exciting, I think, at this time, because he got Trump voters, I think people got very excited about seeing that they mattered and they could make a difference, that someone heard them, right, Joseph?
Right.
You know, because I think that people are looking for that now.
Well, that's one of my favorite speeches your dad makes. It's really a sermon when he talks about rocks just lying around. I think that was the '84 campaign when he makes the analogy between David and Goliath, the smooth stones, and it's the courage. And so when I hear representatives speak about that courage, and also to Jasmine Crockett, who spent some time here in Memphis, she was an undergrad, a stellar undergrad at Rhodes College, my former school. But I think about how well she's done line at championing that fight, picking up that mantle. What we have to do is look at more than 50 million Americans this year visited a food bank. We haven't had that in decades. In decades, more than 50 million Americans are food insecure. And so how can they say, anyone say that they've been successful with sustaining or growing the economy when people can't afford to buy food?
So I mean, Terry, how do we organize these folks? I mean, okay. I mean, because say, if she wins tomorrow, that's not the end. That's another beginning, right? But to
Yeah.
me, tomorrow, no matter what, it's another beginning, because I think that ought to spur people to get registered to vote. The fact that we're having this national conversation about this Tennessee race, I think it's a big deal, because I
Yeah.
think now you got the president who's having to talk about affordability. We have if we change our mind, we can stop this war that they want to have in Venezuela. Although it has been reported that the American command will be they are contracted, if you will, to be in the Caribbean through 2028. So, help me. It's just, the money is in this war machine. But Terry, I mean, what are we supposed to be looking at? What should we be looking for tomorrow?
Well, one
And
thing
what
I'd
should
like to say,
we be looking at?
Santita,
Oh, please.
Terry,
Yes.
has Congress given approval for an announcement of war?
No.
No, exactly. No, not only that, you've got two people in Congress, one's a Republican, I'm in the Senate, one's a Republican, one's a Democrat. I heard on the radio just this afternoon, who have said that it looks like war crimes have been committed by U.S. military in their attacks on Venezuela. because they shot at a boat, everyone died except for two. There were two defenseless survivors of the attack on the boat hanging on to, I don't know, a raft or something, and the order was made to kill them, and they were unceremoniously killed. And now there's two senators who are saying that looks like a war crime to us. So at least there's some recognition of that, as that what Trump is doing with the military is really out of control. And I think, once again, Senator Mark Kelly has said this with a number of other people. Military personnel are not permitted to commit crimes. They're not permitted to obey illegal orders. And there are helplines that they can call where they can get protection for it, so that they don't have to commit illegal orders. But anyway, that's the thing. I think one of the things that's most important for the Democrats to wrap their brain around, and I don't necessarily trust that they know how to wrap their brains around this. Let me just point this out, that the problem in this country is that capitalism has failed us. End of sentence. The problem in the country is that capitalism is killing us. It is burning up the planet. It is creating unaccountable oligarchs who are crushing the spirit of young people trying to get a job, who can't buy a house on 40 hours a week, which is outrageous. In the richest country in the world, and you can't afford to buy a house even though you're working 40 hours a week? That's crazy. But guess who benefits from that? That would be the billionaire oligarchs. There are too many billionaires who have the ear of too many powerful Democrats in Washington, D.C. And until the Democrats understand that, they will not be able to make use of this extraordinary moment when Republicans are looking at what the current Republican trifecta is doing to us and saying, no, this is not what we wanted. I did not want the guy who mows my lawn to be swept up and snatched away and disappeared, because there are now hundreds, by the way, of people being snatched up by ICE. We think they're ICE. We don't know. They're masked and they don't have any insignia. You don't know their name. There's no badge number. They have literally been disappeared from the facility in Florida that they call Alcatraz, the alligator Alcatraz. Hundreds unaccounted for. In other words, disappeared. So what I'm saying is a lot of Republicans that I know here in Tennessee really hate that. And if the Democrats don't understand that they need to stand up themselves to the oligarch billionaires who really want their tax breaks. They love Trump's tax breaks and they love Trump's rollback of regulations. And the Democrats can't stand up to those people and say, we need these regulations for the welfare of the people of this country, and we need your tax money because you need to pay your fair share like everybody else. They are going to squander the opportunity that they have. I don't know that Chuck Schumer understands that. I don't know that Hakeem Jeffries understands that. I do know that Afton Bain understands it. I will tell you that. For sure, she understands it. Jasmine Crockett understands it. AOC does. Zoran Mamdani clearly understands it. You know, your dad understands it, Santita, 100%.
Well,
and so does Sanders.
what we understand is that the only thing in life that's constant is change.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked crazy in 1988. You know, Reverend took his licking over Gaza, over the Palestinians in 88, in 84 and 88. And they really came after him in 88. That having been said, we did win New York City. And the night of the primary, he said, we might not have gotten the state, but we're coming back from New York City. Now, mind you, they had one of the most popular mayors in their history, Ed Koch, at that time. Yeah, we did take the city the next year. We don't know what everybody talk. We act as if these people are a permanent part of the landscape. They're not, Joseph.
They're not. They're not.
Ron. They're not. Daryl, they're not. And today we got to understand, all bets are off with everybody.
Well, I'd like for you all to help as I've pinned an article, an op-ed for the Commercial Appeal, and it's going to deal with how we look at future elected people that we choose to be our candidates and who are going to represent us. And that will be published sometime this month, but I'll keep you abreast, Santita, so you could share it with the group.
Please.
But it talks about the billions of dollars that flow through Memphis and Shelby County and how we have a permanent underclass. So we've had, you know, because Reverend Jackson was so successful, that down ballot all across those, not just southern states, but those states that he won, there was a down ballot of electable people that have served, and many of them served for more than 30 plus years, and they served well. But now we are faced with a different kind of elected, and they tell you one thing, but they get compromised when they go into office, and then they start representing the folks who've been keeping them in the underclass. And I think we just got to do, as Terry said, we've got to make some really tough choices about our leadership overall. And no one is, Congresswoman Brown used to say this all the time, there are no permanent friends in politics. Is how do we get the best for the community? How do we deliver these services? How do we make sure that healthcare is there? I mean, at some point, there's no ownership to these positions. And some people, whether they're Democrat or Republican, believe that there seems to be some permanent ownership while they keep this permanent underclass.
That people are not feeling that now. I literally have like 4 minutes left for everyone. So I'm going to give everybody a minute and a little bit of change to close us out, because I mean, we'll be looking at Tennessee, but then we've got to look at Texas. We've got to look everywhere, and you got to get people registered to vote, because 90 million people did not vote in this 2024 election. Everybody, they could have changed everything had they been inspired and had their concerns been addressed. How about that?
Right.
Now let's think about that. Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, what say
Well,
you?
all eyes are on my home state of Tennessee. I encourage everyone to get out and vote, make an informed decision. This election isn't just for Tennessee. This could be for control of Congress. So no pressure, Tennessee, but I have full confidence that the voters will get it right and elect a state representative to go to Congress that is fully competent, capable, and qualified to hit the ground running. We need more organizers that understand working families and not just going to get there and sell out to special interests in the millionaires and billionaires, but hold President Trump accountable for his MAGA policies that don't benefit most Tennesseans. Thank you.
Attorney Daryl Jones, Of course,
You know, San-
every Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, WOL. Come on now, I got to let people know. WOLDC. That's important. And of course, you can go to Radio One and find them, but you've got to see this and hear this wonderful show that he and attorney Barbara Arnwine host. You go.
Thank you so much, Santita, for that. And, I could not underscore more highly what Representative Reynolds has just laid out. It's so important for folks to get out and vote this election, particularly in the state of Tennessee. I'll lift up what Dr. Kiles has said as to the reason why you need to get out and vote. 50 million Americans are food insecure. SNAP benefits get cut. All of this is the reason why people in Tennessee need to get out and vote for a member of Congress that will support their interests. I can't put it any clearer than that, Santita. Go to vote.org, be certain you're registered to vote, know where you're going to vote, and get your vote on.
Hey, Attorney Terry O'Neill.
Yeah, and if you live in Tennessee, go to proudvoter.org. Civic Tennessee, a statewide organization, can tell you, are you in District 7? Where's your polling place for tomorrow? Because remember, unlike early voting, you have to vote at your assigned polling place tomorrow. So if you live in Tennessee in District 7, or you know someone who lives in District 7, make sure that they get out to vote. And like we say, it's not enough for people who live in District 7 to vote. You have to bring 5 friends or family members with you to the polls when you vote tomorrow.
Dr. Joseph Kiles, what say you?
Santita, it's been a real pleasure having this conversation with these bright minds across the country. As a 5th generation human advocate, the 40 years that I spent traveling with your father, one of the things that is most prevalent to me is, and he would look to me and he'd say, Joseph, you don't drown when the water overtakes you. You drown when you stop kicking. And I know you all have heard him say that. And so at this point, Tennessee is at that verge. There is an opportunity, if we do this right tomorrow, that we could take a real strong shot at getting a Democratic senator, a U.S. senator. There is an opportunity for us to take this wave and push it and put the right people in place. And we say that I watched Mandami when I was in Israel this summer, and I watched his campaign because while I was in Israel, there were many commercials about Mandami in Israel, right? Get the connection there. And he was successful while everyone that was in static and sustainable politics said he couldn't win. He didn't have he hadn't had a chance. And so Afton Bain certainly has a chance. We have to have courage. And if we have courage, we can take that smooth, small stone and we can slay the giant.
Hey, it's been done before. And, look, I'm telling you, get registered to vote. We are we have these rocks that are just on the ground. He said it. He said it. It was so brilliant. David Fluke, we're not trying to take anyone out, but what we're trying to do is change a system. We need to have a system that creates a floor in which no one can fall beneath into the abyss. Everyone should have access to the best health care available. Everyone should have access to clean water, clean air, the best food, great housing. Nobody should need to live in a mansion, but no one should live in subhuman conditions. And I can tell you from my own experience with my parents, with my family right now, because, hey, my father's got Parkinson's, which means we all have Parkinson's. When my brother was diagnosed with having bipolar, we all have it. When I faced my health challenges 21 years ago, everybody was in the hospital with me while I was getting surgery. Everybody. My brother was in Congress. He was calling every 30 minutes. What's going on? Is she out? That's the way it works. But I can tell you this, looking at my parents, you are not supposed to have to go through this and go through your savings to save someone's life. That's not the way this is supposed to work. And this is something he's fought for everybody. No one should be wondering where their meal is going to come from.
That's right.
I noticed in these TikTok videos, no one was making turkeys this year. People were making turkey wings. What is it saying? What's going on everywhere? Think about that. What are we doing? We are moving toward $38 trillion of debt. That is unsustainable. That's 38 million. 1 trillion is 1 million times 1 million. As Reverend Jackson has said, how many of you need bread? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you need a bomb? Okay. Think about that. Let's get our priorities together. The way this system is built, it doesn't always work, but we can make it work. The beauty is that we can make it work, but you got to work it.
That's
We
right.
can make it work. We can work it out. The Beatles wrote that a long time ago. We can work it out. You got to
That's
get
right.
registered to vote. And you got to get registered and vote for people who have been denied the franchise. The system is designed. I don't care how unfair it's been. It's designed for you to get your fair share. That's why people come in on America, because there's no place like it. And we need to work it. And it works when we work it.
That's right.
So get out there and vote, everybody. Tennessee, get out there and show up and show out. Texas, show up and show out. You got 900,000 rocks on the ground. Pick them up. Get registered and vote. And everybody needs to get. 90 million of us didn't vote in this last election. Get up, get registered and vote. We can make this system work. It's our country,
Absolutely.
everybody. We came over in different ships. We're in the same boat now. That's not original to me. My father said that too. But yeah, it's our country. Believe it or not, look around here. Everybody on this panel, we don't look alike, but guess what? We're all Americans and we are all one family. Thank you,
That's
Sister Sledge. I love you, everybody. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I'm Santita Jackson. God bless. I love you.